Third Degree Net Podcast. The Third Degree Net Podcast. The Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree the Podcast is brought to you by soccer90.com. For all your FC Dallas, North Texas SC, and U.S. national team gear, they've got everything you want. Check out the large collection of FIFA Women's World Cup jerseys, t-shirts, scarves, whatever you want. Everything you need to represent the U.S. women's national team at the World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. Shop soccer90.com, and if you use code 30 at checkout, you get 20% off your order. Some exclusions do apply.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to episode The Very Naughty, the naughtiest, 222. That's the sexiest number on the books. Episode 222 of Third Degree, the podcast. How appropriate the naughtiest number in all the world has fallen on this particular episode. Hi, it is me, Peter, and talking all things Football Club Dallas with my two buddies. First off, the naughtiest, Dan Crooke.
Evening, Peter. How many Red Bulls are you this evening?
I just finished watching 2 episodes of What We Do in the Shadows, so I'm in a good mood.
The old energy-seeking vampire, energy sapping one, the bald fellow with the glasses, did not.
Colin Robertson.
Yeah.
Yes.
You are full of beans today.
Yes, I'm in season 4, where Colin Robinson is actually a young teenage boy who's been birthed from the carcass of... I'm probably spoiling the show for some people. Anyway, sorry about that.
I've only seen through the first season.
No, it's just such good stuff. And they just started season 5, so I've got a lot of catching up to do. They just did an episode where they participate in a house-flipping, redesign HGTV show called Flip Yourself. Go Flip Yourself, and it's very, very funny. Anyway, also, not so naughty, but always as awesome and well-loved, editor-founder of Third Degree, the podcast, and the website.com, Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Peter, I'm not really sure why 222 is the naughtiest number, but at this point, I'm afraid to ask.
Well, we all know that 666 is the devil's number.
Okay.
So 222 is the naughtiest number. I'm sure it's in a porn book somewhere. Go look it up, Buzz.
Okay.
All right. Well, here we are, guys. This is the irony of this particular episode is that Buzz's famous handwritten run sheet, written in red crayon, is the shortest in this podcast's history, and yet I have a feeling this is going to be the most effed up and longest podcast we've ever done because of all that has transpired in the time since we last spoke last week.
Yeah, it's not a whole lot that's happened, but it's remarkable stuff that's happened. Like every 4 things on this list, all 4 things on this list are worth a chunk of discussion on their own. So I'm sure we'll have plenty to dig into here.
Yeah, I think the headline is that what is about to happen is on Sunday. We don't know the time. I'm assuming it's going to be 8:00 Sunday night. And I will argue with anybody about this. And listen to this phrase carefully because you don't want to misinterpret this. This is the biggest event in this club's history as Inter Miami and Messi come to town. This is a huge deal, Buzz.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that in terms of cultural significance, this is going to be by far the biggest event that's ever happened. You know, you could claim as a soccer fan, perhaps winning an Open Cup is a big deal. You can claim that getting the MLS Cup is a big deal. But the amount of just cross-cultural magnitude that we've seen in just even simple ways is making it very clear that this is a different level of hype, a different level of awareness, and a transcendent moment. I, of course, hope the Hunts are capable of taking advantage of it because that hasn't always been the case.
Yeah. Dan, you come from another land, and you are a longtime lifer fan of a club in Luton Town. Now, Luton has progressed to the Premier League, but let's just say Luton Town was still in the Championship or League One, and Messi had joined a Premier League club and was going to come play an FA Cup game at Lansdowne Road. Wait, Kenilworth Road. Sorry.
Yeah, why would we be an island?
Right. why would we be in Dublin? Kenilworth Road. And Messi and whatever Premier League club he was playing for was coming to play at Luton Town in Luton. That would be the biggest deal in that club's history, would it not? Or am I completely wrong about this?
I don't know. I think it's a lot different. Europe to North America, just with where the game's been at for the last 100 years. It is a massive, culturally significant event. There has never been an FC Dallas game where tickets have been going on SeatGeek for $3,000. So that in itself tells you that the attention, the eyes on this game, the eyes on Frisco on Sunday are far more than I've ever known in, sort of 11 years here. So I'm sure, the league being in a much smaller place before then, you could probably say the same, right?
Yeah. I just don't know if everybody, because I made this statement in a couple places and people are like, no, going to MLS Cup is a bigger deal, or winning US Open Cup's a bigger deal, or the very first day of the club is a bigger deal. And I'm like, no, you're missing the point. There's an opportunity here for this club to really change its perception in this marketplace. I mean, every single media outlet in this market is talking about FC Dallas and Messi coming to town.
Yeah, I think when somebody had kind of argued back on you saying that, I made the point of Luton Town winning the playoff final is the biggest event in our history. We're 100 and nearly 40-year-old football club. We've had 24 years in the top flight. We've been to an FA Cup final. We've beaten Arsenal at Wembley for a major cup. We've had more significant events to fans, more meaningful events. But in terms of, you're going to be realistically mentioning Luton Town Football Club on at least a third of the shows until May or June, whenever the season finishes, just because the Premier League. That didn't happen in the Championship. That didn't happen in League One, League Two, didn't happen in the National League. If the similarity to me is Luton has to put up a fight. They have to at least try and stay in the Premier League to keep that attention, to build on it. The same way Dallas has an opportunity to build on this. You have thousands of people who clearly have enough money to buy a season ticket because they're playing more than a season ticket for this one game.
Right, exactly.
It's what do you do with them? How do you capture their attention and bring them back? How do you make it to a point where, we're not saying, oh, great, 6 of the first 8 games were a sellout. We're saying every single game is a sellout. You can't buy a season ticket because there's a waiting list, and they've got to grow the stadium suddenly.
Buzz, this is a huge opportunity for Dan and Clark Hunt. Do you have any faith whatsoever they're up to the opportunity?
Not particularly, but I don't know that it's necessarily going to be their fault. There's a big group of people in this country that call themselves soccer fans and are passionately excited about a European superstar like Messi coming here, that think that Major League Soccer is utter complete garbage. And those people, now that they have Messi coming to their town, are like, I'm paying $1,000 because this is real and MLS sucks. I don't know that you can make a lot of headway with those people. I don't know, no matter what you do, they're going to walk away from the game thinking Messi's still God and MLS still sucks. So I hope that the Hunts can manage to make 10% of those people consider coming back to another game. And if they do, that's going to be a win in my book, because I've just, over the last 26 years of doing this, I've just met boatloads and boatloads of people that just don't give MLS a time of day without ever even watching it. So I don't know that you can get those people to buy in.
Yeah, I guess what I'm not concerned with those people. I'm more concerned with the kind of middle America people that are kind of like, yeah, I know what this is. I'm somewhat interested and could be swayed and becoming a regular fan of this club because they have an amazing experience Sunday night. And I think if I'm worried about anything about Sunday is can the Hunts take the opportunity, for example, to hire enough security to make sure ingress and egress out of the facility and the traffic to and from actually flows somewhat cohesively? Can they overstaff the concession stands so that concessions go well? Can we hope that maybe they supply enough bottles of water for everybody who wants to buy one for it to be there? Can they do all of those things to make sure that this is a good game day experience as best as it can in an early August evening when it's going to be 100 degrees on a Sunday night, right? Those are the things that I think the Hunts are responsible for doing and can, in a large part, make whatever happens on the field Sunday night convert people into being fans of this team. Because you and I both know Dallas could go out there and absolutely wax the floor with Miami, but if everybody, all they go back and think about is, man, getting into the parking lot and out of the parking lot and trying to stand in line in the heat, waiting to get in, and they wouldn't let us bring in water, and they also ran out of water, is all the things everybody's going to remember out of that. And that's the part to me that I think the Hunts are really on the hook for getting right Sunday night.
Yeah, and you can compound that, by the way, with there's a tournament called the Heineken Cup being played at those fields this weekend.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Somebody just mentioned it to me. So,
it's a youth tournament.
Yeah, I don't know much about it, but you obviously do. So.
Oh, yeah. No. It's not no. It's not a youth tournament. It's the adult summer tournament. It used to be called the Budweiser Cup, and I guess Heineken's sponsoring it now. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So add that to the confluence. I'm sure Dan's going to jump in here too, but let's remember too that there's going to be a whole bunch of fans in the casual space who are going to hear about this game and not get to see it. It's on Apple TV. It's not on the air locally, so it behooves FC Dallas to try and get really good media representation of this game from outside, news organizations, and perhaps even get really good deliverance of assets to those media outlets afterwards, because people are going to talk about this outside of, even just these ticket prices are going to make people talk about it. And like ticket prices alone are going to make it a news item. So, no such thing as bad publicity, right? So it's on this club to try and take advantage of that however they can. It's not just, as you mentioned, game presentation, which is huge, and traffic and heat and all that stuff, but also just, working the media in the market correctly in a moment of real spotlight here.
That's kind of the problem. If you think about it, for our media credentials, we're applying to Soccer United marketing, to Leagues Cup, since the usual season MLS ones aren't in play. The ticket prices are not set by FC Dallas. The ticket revenue is not coming to FC Dallas. The security is mandated by the league. It sounds like the parking is being dictated by the league. Everything is kind of at their mercy right now. So what FC Dallas can and can't do, and things like the deliverance of assets to media, is controlled by the Leagues Cup. They have a representative that directs the press conferences. They're doing a mix zone instead of just going into locker rooms. It's all so different that they're kind of having to just. It's like the Gold Cup, right? They just kind of sit there and someone else comes in and runs the stadium for them. Even the scoreboard and the PA announcements are dictated by the competition.
Yeah. But but doesn't that just drive my point home even more, that the things that the Hunts can control are all the more valuable in this case? If they can't control ticket prices and they can't control the actual presentation of the game, they can control all those other elements and make it as good as possible.
That's what I'm saying. It's what can they control, because if the competition dictates you have to have this many vendors, you can't bring in extra staff for them, you can't stock them with anything additional, they're kind of stuck in a position where they're taking the flak for someone else's decision.
I will say the thing that most makes me not want to go to games is post-game traffic. And if they haven't gotten Frisco on board with the idea this game might be pretty big deal, they might have a lot of people mad after the game.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I always feel like the traffic issue, especially leaving the place, is all a byproduct of just not extensive traffic control out on the street. You know, it's all just kind of left up to hoping people follow certain different paths and stuff. And I have a feeling that could be managed way better, but also means you got to pay the money to have all those guys and women standing out there directing traffic. And
I will say the 4th of July this year was much better. They had some new lanes and some people out there they haven't had before. At least the way I went was better. So
I feel like this is a huge opportunity. It's going to be a monumentally epic night of importance for this club that people are going to talk about for a long time. They're going to get more media attention in the span of 4 days or 5 days, whatever it is, than they probably collectively get over the course of an entire season, or more.
Easily.
Yeah. There's going to be overflow seating for media. They're going to kind of clear out some of the lesser used booths. So they were talking to some of the staff. They were saying they may not even have seats in the press box. So yeah, the media attention is going to be absurd.
Yeah, I've heard all kinds of crazy rumors about celebrities, both local and otherwise, attending the games. I can't tell you how many times I've been contacted today by a wide range of people I know very well, all the way to people I haven't talked to in years, asking me if I have access to tickets. I heard a crazy story from somebody who used to work at the club and has not worked at the club in a while, who told me that today they got a phone call. They don't even live in the state anymore. They got a phone call from a vendor that they worked with back in 2010, who called and had this person's number on their phone and called and said, "Hey, do you still work at FC Dallas? And if you do, can you help me get tickets?"
Yeah, it's been crazy.
And my friend couldn't remember who this person was.
Yeah. Yeah, that reminds me of the days I worked in the NBA when I had people would reach out to me that like were coming to the town that I lived in. They'd be like, "Dude, I haven't talked to you in 5 or 10 years. Why in the world would I give you tickets?" Yeah, this is going to be the hardest to get ticket in FC Dallas history without question. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I know that there's a lot of I understand that there's some drama going on and controversy going on with how the supporters group's tickets were sold, Dan, and I a lot of concern about how that's going to play out on Sunday. Do you know what the story is behind that?
I mean, it's effectively people that don't have season tickets that weren't able to get tickets.
Because they don't have season tickets, they just buy the tickets on a game-by-game basis?
Yeah. I mean, you know, there was... FC Dallas has definitely fought for everything they've had in this. That the package that was offered to season ticket holders, where if they renewed, they would get the option to buy $25 tickets for each round of the League's Cup. That's paid dividends for some people. The delivery of it was a little bit aggressive, but you know, the values worked out considering you know, those same seats were $99 on the pre-sale, and you know, now we're going for $900 on resale. Yeah, it's a tough part, right? I think with the supporters groups, there's a lot of people that aren't season ticket holders, and this is just kind of the stark reality of every level. Again, during a comparison to Luton, people who aren't season ticket holders aren't going to be at Brighton at the first game because all the tickets were taken up by season ticket holders, because that was kind of their right. It was the same at Wembley for the cup final. Season ticket holders got the first priority, as they should. They're the people whose money dictates the team's budget in the first place. Yeah, it's a tough situation, but I mean, it's kind of unavoidable. You know?
I thought it was a great thing that the club decided to make it available first to season ticket holders, family members of club players, staff members. I thought that was a great fringe benefit to people who have, you know, put their loyalty towards the club, and I thought that was a smart way to go about it, Buzz.
Yeah, I think they did. In hindsight, they did about the best they could. You know, I was a little bit I don't know if shady is the right word, that you had to buy the whole League's Cup if you wanted to get
Right.
this ticket. That part was a little whatever, but I do like that, if you did buy the ticket for this game, or really was what you were buying for most people, you did get a shot as a season ticket holder to get these extra tickets if you wanted. Granted, it was the astronomical updated price, but and not the $25 that my seat was for this game. But and I guess that was the benefit of buying that whole little package, is you got every game for $25. So, it was absolutely worth it doing it in hindsight, given how expensive this particular game has become, not just at face value, but in the market. So in hindsight, it probably is about as good as they did. I still think the messaging was poor in how they did it, and that they maybe didn't articulate really well to their fans what exactly was going on and what you were paying for or what you were getting.
It's a shame. They fought tooth and nail to give people a good price with the organizers, and then the phrasing of it was just, hey, here's a knife to your throat, pay your money now.
They probably didn't want to mention how expensive this game was going to be ahead of time.
Right.
But if you had communicated that to people would have been ecstatic about buying this whole League's Cup package, I think, if they'd have known what they were really getting, but maybe you don't want to let out in advance that the Messi tickets are going to be $200 at a minimum, so.
Well, I think the other problem is that the idea that this game was ever really going to happen seemed like such a far-fetched concept. Like, it was such a weird alignment of stars to make this happen. I mean, we're such in a weird space from just a month ago, where we were thinking, well, we're never going to get to see Messi come play in Dallas just because of the way the schedule has fallen together, to now it literally being his first road game as a player for Miami. I mean, it's bonkers how quickly this has changed.
Yeah, and to go back a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was a month ago, when we raised the idea that, dude, you could sell out AT&T or the Cotton Bowl. I think the hype that we're seeing now, clearly that was true. We were right about that. Obviously we know why they can't, but they easily, based on the amount of requests I'm seeing and demand I'm seeing, have sold out either one of those facilities without a problem.
Yeah, and just for people who didn't listen, the argument as to why they couldn't have done it is an AT&T Stadium just can't be converted that quickly because it doesn't have a grass surface. And plus the field's too small anyway, frankly, for a game that counts for something in my head. I guess they've played Gold Cup games. The Cotton Bowl is another story. I don't know what the status of the Cotton Bowl is, but I don't know what the logistics are for renting it on on the potential of needing it. That's the part that I think makes that almost impossible, right?
Well, that, and as Dan's, I think, probably was trying to say, is that we don't think they can get out of the contract and not play their games at Toyota Stadium.
Their updated contract is supposed to be it is, they used to be able to go off to different college stadiums for Open Cup, and it sounds like what they've got now is they
have to play all their games there.
Frisco.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And look, just as somebody who's been a fan of this team since day one, the idea that the greatest player ever, or at least of our modern time, is coming to play in a competitive game against my club, I want them to play in our stadium. I realize it's 20,000 instead of 80,000, but I just think that makes this all the more special, and I think it's going to be – I know there's a lot of people really worried that this is going to be dominated by interlopers and little kids who just love Messi, but I think the atmosphere is going to be amazing Sunday night, and I think I hope more people are looking forward to this than some of the stuff I've seen on Buzz's Discord and on Twitter and other social media where people seem to be fretting that this is happening. I just don't understand that line of thinking. It's just so weird to me.
Well, if you're getting squeezed out of your normal thing and missing out on your normal thing because somebody else wants to come in and spend crap tons of money, I can understand that feeling. That's.
I don't know what you mean. Why would you get squeezed out?
Well, if you're a supporter, for example, and you're a big part of the atmosphere that happens, and you just don't happen to be a season ticket holder, you might feel you're getting squeezed out.
Okay.
Based on what I'm seeing, the supporter section is only going to have 2 rows of actual supporters in it, and the rest of it's been sold to non-supporters club people. You know,
So the supporter section wasn't. The supporter section was not a section that was given up for a general sale. That was one that was kind of put aside for people on the season ticket list who kind of could buy extra tickets with their package.
well, you're still going to end up with a good chunk of people that are normally there, a normally big part of the supporters club, not being able to be there. And I'm sure that's true all through the stadium. There are probably lots of people that feel like this is their ball of wax. And all of a sudden there's all these people, these interlopers, these Johnny-come-latelys that are taking all the tickets, you know. I can understand that feeling. I'm not saying that maybe in a big picture, you know, we should sit back and say, you know, what a moment this is, even if we're not going to be there. You know, it still should be recognized as a big moment. But I totally get the vibe of like, this is my ball game you're taking away from me for this particular game.
Okay.
I'm glad that the FC Dallas messaging has said, like, you know, no Messi, no Miami, no Argentina, no Barcelona, no whatever in the supporters section, because that, you know, we've already seen the videos of the Arsenal Man United game where the Arsenal fans started fighting each other. The little, you know, Euro snobs don't actually like things that aren't a TV show. Well, what's this live thing with a round ball in front of me experience, you know? So, you know, the supporters section is kind of that safe space for fans to be fans.
Yeah.
Look at it this way: the game we just watched had 6,000 people there.
I know, that's the funny thing to me is watching these last few games, and the stadium has been absolutely empty. And suddenly, in this exact same tournament, it's going to be the polar opposite, and that's really funny to me. That's interesting. If somebody that's listening to this is somebody that has been squeezed out because they couldn't afford to go to the game or couldn't afford to buy into the ticket package, or have a friend that was buying the package that could get extra tickets, I feel terrible for you. That's not cool at all. I hope this turns out to be a magical night for everybody, because I think that's the kind of level of potential this thing has for the club. The global popularity of this one guy is off the charts. He may be the most popular human being or most well-known human on the planet, and he's coming to play a competitive game against our club on a Sunday night, and that just has never happened before.
Yep.
And we don't know the kickoff time. I think we're all assuming it's going to be 8 o'clock. Dan, have you heard any kind of scuttlebutt about that?
8 or 7:30, one of those.
Yeah. Buzz, I'm sorry you're not going to be there for that.
Oh, that's okay, man. I'm on vacation. Like I said, I've seen him before, and I was happy to share my ticket with you. So
yes, well, that's a whole story unto itself.
Maybe later.
Yeah, maybe later. We won't chew up any more time with that. But okay, so lots of other news. The big other headline is the thing that kind of threw us all for a massive loop last night. After the game, I don't remember who it was. Somebody said it in the Discord, or I saw it tweeted somewhere. Somebody said, anybody know why Edwin Cerrillo was crying on the field after the game? And I was like, oh no, did something bad happen? Did he get hurt and that's why he didn't play, or what going on? Buzz, what in the world? Edwin Cerrillo has been traded to the LA Galaxy for 600 good jabronis, or whatever they call it. Jabronis,
well, technically it's 200 and then 400 based on incentives. So
okay. That makes much more sense,
does it not?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, listen, Edwin was emotional last night because it is his boyhood club and all that stuff. I'm sure he either found out during the game, or somebody said, maybe some of the players said afterwards or something to him. I understand he and Jesus had a moment. I've reached out to people I know today that know him, and apparently he's very okay with this whole thing. I told you guys, everybody, that he had turned down some initial offers from the club, and so his contract was ending at the end of this season. So it's not surprising. If you follow sports long enough, you know how this works sometimes when you have a player nearing the end of their contract and they're not necessarily getting anywhere with the negotiations. Often you try and get something for them beforehand. We've also talked lots and lots about how this club could upgrade that position. And Edwin, as much as anybody can, I think I'm going to put words in his mouth here on this one, because I think the younger guys can all see that this coach currently likes older players. So, I don't think it's going to bother him too much to get a new, fresh start somewhere else. He probably was a guy who had reached about as far as he was going to under the current coach here. And so a new start probably is good for him. Maybe it's a club that will invest in him. You would assume when you trade for a guy that they would probably try and put a new contract in place for him so that they don't spend money on him and have him walk away in 6 months. Not 6 months. Yeah, 6 months. I assume that they'll probably try and play him fairly quickly too. So, good fresh start for him and a decent chunk of money, 200 GAM for him on base with incentives if he continues to play. He's got the talent to be a solid contributor to a team in this league for the next decade. So, hopefully those incentives are based on number of performances, and there's even a sell-on percentage I think I saw in there. So, I think it's okay to move him on. I don't think it's a problem. I think he's probably content. I think the club's probably content.
Well, we all wondered when we started seeing the news that they were selling off one of the few parts that they have in the center of the midfield. They're like, okay, we're all just going to trust that somebody was coming in, and sure enough, somebody is coming in, and they're making a big deal out of his resume. When I thought it was funny when the Twitter account said, if this gets retweeted 24 times, we'll sign a Champions League Cup winner, and I thought, okay, that could mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
You could post a picture of a really, really old effer on here, and I'm not going to be super excited about it. But no, we are getting former La Liga, Real Madrid, and other Spanish team holding midfielder Asier damn it, I was going to get it right.
Dang it.
Illarramendi. So, all right, I got it okay on the second time. And here's the deal. I think I've heard of him before.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you anything about his game other than the fact that he's 33 years old. Messi's 36, y'all. Hey,
yeah.
He's banged in goals left and right. So,
right.
Buzz, what's your feeling and vibe about Mr. Illarramendi?
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. A guy that plays damn near 300 games in La Liga, with Champions League skins on his belt, that's a legit resume for sure. But you remember the red flag is that just last week we were talking about the kinds of players Dallas has done well with and the kinds that have not. And the kinds they've done well with are these South American diamonds in the rough kind of guys and not European retreads that are in their mid-30s. So red flag is that
Chad Deering.
Well, Chad Deering wasn't in his 30s when he came back here. He played in the World Cup and came back here.
Was he not in his 30s when he?
No.
Was he not 30 yet? Okay.
No.
All right.
No. So yes, as always, we will wait and see what he looks like. Hopefully I'll see him at practice. We'll watch him on the field, and then we'll actually judge him. I love the resume. I love the potential for teaching, of mentality and professionalism. And by the way, there is a young six on this roster other than Edwin Cerrillo, and that's Nolan Norris. So don't forget that.
I know.
Yeah. So, you don't, the positive upsides of this, and I'm not talking about the player, I'm just talking about the move, is that he's only signed through the rest of this season with an option for next year. So this is kicking the tires on a dude. Does he have anything left? Right.
Is he interested?
Yeah. Is he coming here for vacation, or is he actually going to play? Is he any better than Facundo? Because Facundo's deal is up. He may or may not have options, but his main contract is up. I don't think he has an option, but it's possible he does. They're not really good about publicizing all that stuff. So you have the rest of this season basically to decide. You don't likely want two 30-year-old central mids, sixes on probably roughly the same kind of money. I imagine they're both going to be, Facundo we know is above the DP line as a buy down. Again, why you wanted some money with Edwin. And this new guy presumably is also going to be the same boat. He's not going to be a DP. I can't imagine. So next year's deal will be the one we care more about, is like, what kind of hit is it? Is it a buy down too? It probably is. So those players without looking at how they play, just looking at how they fit in the league, they're the same player. So you don't want both of them. You want one guy like that, and you want one guy that's young. Maybe it's not Norris, maybe it's somebody else. We'll see. So they've not locked themselves. This is a mistake they've made with other dudes. They would locked him in for 3 years. They didn't lock themselves into this guy. So this is a really good roll of the dice. It's a kick of the tires. If he comes in and he outplays Facundo, great. Pick up the option. Say thanks, Facundo. It gives you a guy that's going to press Facundo even harder than Edwin clearly had not been the last month or two. So if he's better than Facundo, we'll see a bunch of them. If he's not, they'll just ride Facundo the rest of the way, and this guy or Nolan will spell him Facundo when it happens. So,
all right. So before we start poking a bunch of holes in this, I want to look at it from what I'm trying to do is see the potential and opportunity in this signing, because one of the things I think we learned about Facundo is that Facundo played better when he had Cerrillo next to him, when he wasn't asked to do all of the 6 work solo.
Yeah.
Do we agree on that, Buzz?
Yeah, much better in a double pivot. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So and of late, what has happened with this team is that we've seen kind of a change for the better in Alan Velasco in this more central playing position.
Yep.
Can we also agree on that?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So am I stretching it to think of the possibility that what they're thinking about here is pairing these two slightly older holding 6s in a double pivot and letting Allen play in front of them?
Maybe. Coach definitely liked the double for sure, but he's natively a single guy. The 4-3-3, that's what he wants to really do. And remember that the Allen's explosion, particularly in this Leagues Cup, has coincided with Leggett returning to form. And if you put Allen on an island with 2 6s behind him, maybe all of a sudden he's the focus again, and maybe he's not getting free again. Whereas if you're going with a single, you have a reborn Leggett and you have Allen both making these splitting passes and getting guys free. Yeah. Playing the slashing style that they even in the last game, they even did it with the ball, which is amazing. We haven't seen that before. So the trick here, I think, while I don't think it's totally unlikely that you're looking at from time to time for sure a double pivot, and maybe we'll see some of that too. I think it's more likely they're looking for a 6 who can cover a little more ground and be a better progressive passer and dribbler than Facundo, and do some things more like. Not to be totally cliched, but more like Busquets does, where Busquets makes these passes out of that deep position. And then you don't have to run a double pivot from back there. You can run a single, and you don't need a playmaking 8 in a deep position when you put Paxton back there next to one of those guys or put Leggett deep next to one of those guys. So a lot of the questions about how they're going to use him will be determined when he actually shows up, because I imagine it'll take him a week or two to get that visa and actually get in here. The Leagues Cup will probably be over by the time he's available. So we'll have to see how it fits in.
Hey, he's 2 years younger than Busquets.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, Busquets is a great example of you can be a spectacularly world-class 6 without running all that much. If you can read the game and so far advance the game like he does. Now, granted, he's a one of a kind, Busquets is. But there are other guys that play like that. I would point it like a Kyle Beckerman never did all that much running, side to side, yes, but not like vertically forward. You can be a really good player by not going crazy out of that position, just by getting in the right place at the right time and reading the game and making small, simple moves and passes and touches. If this guy's got any of that, and look, resume alone, if you took their names off the pages and you held up Facundo's resume and you held up this guy's resume, I'm about to work on his name, you would pick this guy every time. But if you add that he's 33 instead of 30, maybe we'll see. But then Facundo's not particularly mobile, so you don't have to be a whole lot very mobile at all to be just as good as Facundo in terms of your mobility. So I'm hoping that he's going to come in and just outplay Facundo and solve this problem for you. Either way you look at it, if this guy is sticking around or if Facundo's sticking around, those two dudes are probably looking at a season or two at most. So that's basically just one. Next year is year 3, and then the year after that's year 4 for this coach. So they're not thinking much past this current cycle of how long can you hold on to Jesus. So this is a short-term move for sure.
All right, but Buzz, you haven't actually stated the question I think everybody listening to this wants to hear from you is, do you like this move? But the pairing of the moves, selling Edwin and getting this older guy.
Yeah.
With the resume.
I do. Listen, I'm a huge Edwin fan. I would have started Edwin in front of Facundo the entire year.
But only because
only because of his age. You know, I'm not a big fan of players in their 30s. But if you look at a guy like Edwin, who was clearly sort of plateauing here in terms of the opportunities he was going to get, and his deal was running out, and you managed to get something for him, and now you've got a guy that's got a deal that won't handicap you, because it really is, you can just do it for 6 months and then let him go if it's not working. So there's both those things are smart. I like smart moves. You know, I don't like dumb moves. So if he doesn't pan out, it's fine. It's no big deal, because the decision making behind it was solid, and they haven't handcuffed themselves. So I like it. If it turns out he can actually play, even better. You know.
So that would be a nice cherry on top.
It would be a nice cherry, but like at least they haven't made it worse. You know, like sometimes in the past they've done moves that made this team worse. Like I think you can't question that when you went from Carlos Carrezzo to Thiago Santos to Facundo Quignon, you made this club worse. Well, signing this guy doesn't make it worse.
It is still TBD. He could show up and absolutely suck.
He could, but he
could wilt in the heat and be terrible.
At least you won a Facundo, so it ain't going to be worse.
Yeah.
You know, you can stick Paxton in there for a thing. You can stick Nolan in there. You know, this guy I'm sure can run around for 20 minutes if you have to. You know, it's going to be fine. You know, it's not going to cost you a cup. Like, you're not building for a cup this year anyway. But we've talked about the need for an Elite Six. If this guy still has MLS version of an Elite Six in him, I mean, look at João Paulo with Seattle. Isn't he like 36 also? A guy I absolutely love, and he's still getting it done. So, you know, when you take Messi and you drop him down to, you take him from the major leagues down to AA, you're taking this guy from La Liga down to AA, he might look still pretty good at AA. We're going to see, you know. I mean, I hope so, hopefully. So on paper, yeah, I like it. I think it's good. It's not a guy I want to spend a whole boatload of money on and invest in for like 6 or 7 years. But for now and on a short term, I'm okay with it.
All right, Dan, you're the European on this podcast. Why don't you give us the full download and scouting report on the guy? Because I'm sure you're very familiar with him.
Not really, no. I mean, you just kind of look at the face of it, right? He played 31 games last year.
Apollo's 32, Buzz, by the way. Sorry.
Oh, all right, well, same difference.
Yeah,
Sorry,
played 31 games last year with a team that Real Sociedad that qualified for the Champions League. That is positive. Previously, a 32.2 million euro buy for Real Madrid at a time where they were kind of dominating Europe. That means he has to be pretty good with the ball at his feet. He was in a position where I think only N'Golo Kante had more interceptions than him among midfielders in all of Europe. You know, that's a pretty good place to go second
That's
tier.
good company, yeah.
And when you look at his passing, his tackling, I mean, is he elite? No, but you know, he's a very high level. He's a guy that was sought after by teams that are in the Europa League this year after leaving Real Sociedad in the summer. He wanted the lifestyle choice, so here he is. One thing we don't know, he obviously wasn't with the team in pre-season, on contract at least, so did he train with anyone? Is he kind of in shape to come over and just immediately get into a game? If not, does he need a pre-season? You know, suddenly you're looking at, you know, nearly the playoffs before he's ready, if that's the case.
Yeah, there's definitely questions, Peter. You know, you're not signing the guy for 6 months with an option if there's not lots of questions.
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole lot of things that make it seem like it might be good, and there's a couple of things that make it seem like red flags. So, you know, again, a little bit of a dead horse on this part. We're going to have to just see. You know, we'll see if he can play. We'll watch him in training and see what he looks like. You know, you don't have to be that good, in my opinion, to be better than Facundo, even though Facundo's having a really good year. So for him, he is.
So that leads me to where we start to pressure test and poke holes and ask questions about this, which is, with all of the transfer window action that has taken place across the league and all of the money in transfer fees that has been spent by numerous clubs across this continues to be the soft spot for the Hunts, which is their real displeasure in spending transfer fee dollars.
Yeah.
And out of an entire globe of holding midfielders, the answer is a 32-year-old guy out of contract who didn't cost you any money other than what you're paying him directly. And I think that's the part where, unless he shows up and just turns out to be a baller, I think can be a bit frustrating as a fan of the club.
Yeah. Well, I think I did a pretty good job last podcast explaining how they are out of tools to do some of these things. There are players that you could get rid of, but they don't really have the availability to make acquisitions, other than getting guys on freeze. So, if you set your club up where you have, a big piles of money waiting around for some incredible world superstars to come available on a free, then you can really do some crazy crap. Like if you can wait till Mbappe comes off the end of his deal next year and you had a big old pile of money sitting there and he was like, yeah, sweet, coming in less. Hey, that's great. But you can't afford to buy him for like $300 million. So the thing with FC Dallas is that they've sort of not to be gross, shot their wad on Areola and Leggett. They paid a lot of money to get those guys, and then Thank
God you didn't mean to be gross about that, Buzz. I appreciate that warning.
Well, it is an expression.
I know.
They paid a lot of money to get those guys and then upped their contracts by a big chunk, and then they rolled the dice on Jimenez. Now, granted, Jimenez didn't cost them anything this year, but he will next year. That's a problem for this winter to figure out. So,
but they have a DP spot they could create if they really wanted to.
They don't.
I thought that you said they could buy one of those guys down.
Areola is a DP, so he's the third DP. So he's the one that hypothetically you could buy down, but it takes like $1 million in GAM, and I just explained to you they don't have $1 million in GAM. So yes, there are mechanics by which they could clear a space. They don't have the assets to clear that space. You'd have to do something like trade Velasco for $3 million GAM. Now I can buy down another DP. I can buy down two DPs and have no DPs.
Sell Javier Obreon for any kind of GAM?
Well, if you think a player sucks, so does everybody else. It's like fans always want to do these trades where it's like, I'm going to send you, the ball boy for Dirk Nowitzki. And you're like, no one's doing that. Like, so no one's going to buy Obreon from you for a bunch of money.
Didn't the Galaxy take Michael Barrios for a sack of flour?
$50K for like a bag of flour. I mean, so you can clear roster, but you can't clear roster and get enough money back to actually buy Paul Areola down.
Damn it, Buzz. Quit being reasonable.
I know. People get mad about FC Dallas not doing anything, and I think it sucks too. I want them to do something cool, but I'm aware of how the mechanics of the league works, and I'm aware of why they can't. Now, if you want to have a discussion about why the Hunts choose to have 3 DPs all on 1.5 million rather than one of them on 15 million or 70 million, that's a conversation that's very short because the Hunts. You've been here, whatever Messi's on.
Clark doesn't pay Dan $70 million.
Yeah, he doesn't pay Mahomes $70 million. I'm just saying.
How much money do you think Clark pays Dan a year?
Oh, who knows?
Little brother money?
Well, probably I mean, not to get off topic, but I would assume that whatever he gets quote unquote paid to be president is in line with what you would pay a president.
Yeah.
Because that job existed before he did it, and somebody else may have to eventually do it someday. So you don't want to pay him like $30 million under the table because then that's a meaningless conversation. But you get my point. You can be critical of, hey, when you get because they only get DPs that are within the buyable down range if you have a boatload of GAM. They used to have a boatload of GAM. They spent it all getting these guys, building this roster, this this quote solid roster with all the pieces are playing well is pretty good. So it's they've made their bed. They're kind of stuck with it for a little bit until they get more GAM in from selling some kids or from you get some from missing the playoffs. You'll get some from Edwin just now. You're probably not getting any from Reynolds, but you might get some from Richards. It just depends on how it goes. You have to build up and get some more going.
All right. So the next part of this that I want to pressure test, or I want to poke on, or whatever, maybe sound like I'm being critical, is it not continue to be confusing that this club seemingly over the course of, well, I guess it's since Nico has taken over the reins as the manager, has gotten away from the play the kids mantra that has made this team what it is today?
Yeah, we've had this discussion earlier this year, this idea that is Nico the wrong coach for this team because of the fact that the Hunts have traditionally been so married to the academy pathway. But, we have also talked about this basically like the Paxton to 03, the 99 to 03 may end up being like the golden years of incredible production that you're never going to see that high again. And right now, other than Antonio, we're in a little bit of a lull. You've seen, there was a little bit of a gap where you didn't have anybody come through and stay. You sold them all. And so now you have your next couple of guys, Tarek Scott and Nolan Norris, but they're going to take a little bit, just like Paxton and those other guys did. So there's a little bit of that part of the gaps of your own making. Don't get me wrong. They did it to themselves. So because they sold everybody they could possibly sell, except for Jesus, who's next, right? So once they figured out that selling was really, really important part of what they were doing for them, that meant you weren't going to have this dream happen of this homegrown 11 in the MLS Cup. Well, at that point, you can either try and band-aid it together with a bunch of kids who aren't ready yet, or you can do what Nico's doing, which is like the one or two you didn't sell, plus a bunch of guys that are late in their career, basically. And then one or two sprinkled in, like Marco Farfan's pretty young, Paz is pretty young, The nice thing is that despite the fact that they've signed some old guys, they don't necessarily rely heavily on those old guys. Junka, who's new, is young. Tafari is 27. Martinez is getting up there, but he was 28 when he got here, right? I mean, Ibiaga's maybe a little older. So, like, the older pieces they've gotten have mostly been backups. Jimenez is a backup. It's like they're not rolling out like this team of 30-year-olds. They're also not rolling out a team of 20-year-olds either anymore. It's got Nico wants these guys that are between 26 and 30, it appears, with occasional 32s and occasional 20s. So it's just not a whole bunch of teenagers anymore like it was for a couple of years under Lucci.
Dan, I want to stop and give you an opportunity to interject here because I feel like I've been prattling. Have been dominating this conversation, and I want your insight, sir.
Into playing the kids?
Whatever. The signing of an older guy or the Castillo situation, not playing the kids anymore, the frustration of how the Hunts spend their money, whatever we just talked about.
Well, I mean, you can talk about the frustration of the Hunts spending money and mechanisms. Ultimately, their remit is they're going to spend money if they can get money back. Alan Velasco, they spent $8 million because that's a guy who they could see getting $15 million from. If they're not going to do that for a 28-year-old or a 26-year-old, they're going to do that for a young guy where they can make a few bucks off it. So, I mean, that's just the reality of who they are. Their business model is part and parcel of the territory. As far as like the play your kids and Edwin Cerrillo has not been good this season. He has been massively outplayed by Facundo, which isn't really saying a ton. Facu was phenomenal yesterday, but he's still not been brilliant. He's still certainly not been an $800,000 player. So yeah, I mean, it's a position that you haven't had a true starter level player in for a couple of years. So I guess if the opportunity comes to get a guy of a certain pedigree who may fill a gap, be a stopgap for a moment while you bring someone else through, then hey, take the risk, right? And that kind of goes for all the positions. Paxton's not been very good. He was, I would dare say, his sub appearance yesterday was actually detrimental to the team. There's just, whether it's the Nico style or whatever, the young guys really haven't been, other than Jesus, the younger guys just haven't really thrived. They haven't really put themselves in positions to thrive.
Okay, well, it feels like a good time for us to move on to the actual result of the game last night, which is Mazatlan comes to town. I'm not a big Liga MX guy, but I think I know enough to know that Mazatlan isn't exactly one of the powerhouses of the Mexican League. They had enough performances in this tournament to get to this stage. Last night was an interesting performance, Buzz, because we saw some really good attacking play. We saw the return of Leggett, who continues to kind of grow in my eyes and kind of finding his form. Alan Velasco is starting to regenerate into something that is interesting. And then on the flip side, you've got the continuous frustration of Martinez in the back and just the reality that he's just a mistake waiting to happen. And then the most frustrating player that I think I've ever recalled in a Dallas shirt is Javier Obreon. And I was trying to think, am I forgetting somebody that's more frustrating as a fan than that guy?
Well, Roland Law was for me, but everyone's taste is different.
Maybe this is recency bias on my part.
I mean, he's pretty frustrating. I'll give you that.
And he was in such a good space not that long ago. It was weird how he's just he went from an off switch to an on switch, and now it's back off again.
Yeah, he did it to himself too.
Off.
Go Dan.
I was just saying, one game off did it. He was in that great form, got himself suspended, sat that one game, and just turned to shit.
Yeah, and then got that extra by his own knuckleheadness.
So, Buzz, how would you, let's just kind of go through the game. I mean, obviously it's a fantastic result and some really nice things came out of it. I'm interested in your kind of point of view other than what we heard from your instant reaction video last night.
Well, this
morning, I mean.
Yeah, number one, Sam Junka can hit a banger of an own goal. That's the second time he's hit an absolute cracker of an own goal. Well, in all seriousness, own goal aside, and sometimes you just got to go for balls and block them. But I thought he played pretty well, filling in for Farfan. So anytime they need to roll him out there, I have no problems with that at all. I think often he's actually outplayed Giovanni Jesus on the right as well, for that matter. Hopefully we'll see Tuamazzi back and healthy, since he's a better defensive option than Giovanni for some of these road games that they have. If not at home. I really liked Paz's performance, which I mentioned in the three things. I also mentioned in the three things, it's not just that the Velasco-Leggett thing is working well. It's that last night they were able to do it while dominating possession, because usually they can only do it in transition when the other team has the ball a good bit and they're able to turn them over and get at them in a hurry and catch them napping. Well, they were able to do that just in open play. So you got that slashing, swashbuckling style that looks so good with the Pirate King up there leading the line. That was really exciting. And several people asked me, because Jesus did a really nice job assisting and passing in this game, when he had moved out of the center channel, should we just make him a 10 or whatever? And the answer to that is no, absolutely not. That's quintessential false nine play. Some days you're a false nine and you're moving, you're creating space and you're getting back into that space. Sometimes somebody else is getting back into that space and you're passing to them. And that's what's happening in this game in particular, is that people were taking advantage of Jesus' vacated space. Again, quintessential false nine play, that he's doing exactly the way you want to do it. You don't want to change a thing with that. That's working really well. The change you want to make is that you want to, in my opinion now, is bench Obreon for Ansa. I think Ansa is a smarter player. And again, that's something that drives you crazy, Peter, I know, is that you watch Obreon make these terrible decisions. He doesn't know where he is on the field. He loses track of his position, and he doesn't combine well or correctly. And Ansa does both those things better, and he can get to the ball with his head. So I'm ready to start Ansa on the left over there for Obreon. Camugo's still doing really good things. You can see that he's still raw in a lot of phases. He's got so much potential, though. As long as Paul is still recovering, I'm okay with Kamungo continuing. There will be a point at which Paul's going to be the better choice, but Paul's not there physically yet. But so in the meantime, Kamungo's fine. Kamungo's going to be one that's going to really explode in a couple of years. Not now. Now is a bonus. Now is nice, but it's not. It's a good story, but it's not what you want. There's still too much rawness there to really be elite with him so far. And that's really it. I mean, it's going really well. Oh, center back. I'm with you. I think Martinez will only play now in a rotational capacity. I think it's Ibiaga and Tafari all the way, and that you'll just spell them with Martinez. He'll get spot starts. He'll get end of game things to keep it all fresh. But I think it's clear now that those other two guys are the choices.
You don't think Martinez starts just based on his Spanish league experience on Sunday?
Oh, against Messi?
Is he going to be the only guy on the field that has played against Messi in his career before?
Played with.
With?
Yeah, Barcelona.
Oh, I thought maybe he played against him after he left Barcelona.
He did, yeah. He played against him for Girona.
Yeah. Because I'm just going to throw this out here. There's another player that I'm kind of surprised I've become more and more frustrated with as this season has gone on, and that's Tafari. And last night, a lot of what happened in the last 10 minutes of that game was Nkosi just flipping the switch off in the box. I mean, there was one sequence of passes where Tafari just let his mark run right past him into the box and was just purely lucky the cross wasn't very good. There were a couple of things, and then the thing that I found most maddening, Buzz, was in the injury time, this team in general looked like it was playing with its food.
Yeah.
It was in a real danger of giving up the lead. And Tafari in particular was like trying to ping 60-yard balls into space when all they had to do was just retain possession for another 2 or 3 minutes. And I know he's young and I know he's learning on the fly, but I that's kind of stuff that he was doing in the first year. It's the kind of stuff I'm hoping he stops doing today.
Well, I think Dan's right. I think Paxton and Siki and Sebling killed the possession for Dallas. They were also being more conservative as a group. Just by nature that happens, but they were sitting off too much and they were letting Mazatlan get
Mazatlan.
Sorry, I always want to say Mazel
Tov.
or Malazan, which is a book series. Mazatlan get too much possession and get a lot of good long range shots, uncontested long range shots. So I actually think it was the midfield that fell apart, not the defense.
Did it.
Yeah, it wasn't good. The other thing with Nkosi too is I think that he tends to be a bit of a antagonizer, kind of get in your head kind of guy. Well, the Mexican teams are really, really good at that. And I think he has against a couple of Mexican teams, he hasn't looked super composed. He looks like he's gotten it back as much as he's given it. And that kind of has cost him a little bit of composure and a little bit of late game stability. I think that that's actually a good thing that he's experiencing this League's Cup. Actually, I think playing these Mexican teams will do more for him than it will for almost anybody on the field. The problem with sticking with Martinez, I think, and I actually think that you probably, rested Tafari and Ibiaga the last 2 games knowing that this game was coming potentially because they still have Josef Martinez, who still is a handful. And they have a couple other guys that are handfuls that other than Messi. Forget about Messi running at you. Messi running at you is a problem for, your 6 trying to help you. Now, remember, a lot of teams have tried to exploit that gap between the left back and the left center back when it's been Martinez. We've seen that a lot. A lot of teams go out that gap because Martinez isn't quick enough. So I really think you got to stick with Nkosi because he's the only one that can play left center back with enough pace to deal with that. So it's going to be a big job for Dallas because you have to admit that between Busquets and Messi, there's an absolute boatload of international super smarts in soccer on that team in the midfield. And so that Facundo, Velasco, Leggett triple midfield is going to get a lot of eyes on them and a lot of workload on them and a lot of responsibility on them. And really that probably will be the key to the game, is because if you let those guys in that inner midfield run rampant on you, you're going to be in trouble. So.
Yeah, I was. I hope Nico shows the last 6 minutes of that game to the crew and all of the terrible decision making that was going on. There was no need to try to attack. There was Jesus was guilty of at least twice not passing the ball to somebody wide open in the box and trying to beat two defenders, and players advancing the ball forward when they weren't under pressure and just turning it over in a bad pass and just giving Mazatlan every opportunity. And Buzz, as you said, man of the match, Martin Paz with a stunning double save very, very late in the game. I just thought was maybe the one really, really good, bright thing other than Ansa to take out of the performance.
Well, Jesus was also pretty good. I don't think you can, him as the man of the match choice was certainly a viable choice. And I think obviously the way the Lletget Velasco combo keeps going is very good. But I do agree that for me, like that was the sort of standout performance, the save the game performance from Paz, because there was probably 3 shots in the last 20 minutes that would have easily been goals against a lot of keepers. Yeah, and he kept them out, and he kept the win intact. That could have easily been a tie or a loss, if he's not making those saves. So that's why he was my man of the match, and he's having a phenomenal season. He's bailed him out maybe 7 or 8 times now. He's bailed him out of a game. This was another one for me. They did that.
All right. Well, let me explain where I'm thinking about this performance, which is the frustration of how dangerous they were playing is reflective of what happened in the Charlotte game. They were leading that game. They had control of that game, and they played with their food, and they paid for it. And that's what I thought was going to happen last night. I was convinced they were going to give up that second goal, and it was only for Martin Paz that they didn't.
Well, there was a bit of a difference for me in those scenarios because against Charlotte, Jesus had 2 opportunities, and somebody else probably Oberon had a couple opportunities to put that, and Kamunga did too, to win that game. They could have won that game 5-0. Whereas against Mazatlan, I felt like, they basically kind of Lucci balled them for most of the time and just sort of kept the ball away from them until they made those subs late. And then they gave the other team the ball. And all of a sudden that other team's like, okay, now we get to play. And so those are different scenarios in a lot of ways.
It's still playing with your food in my book.
It is in the sense that like over the last 20 minutes, Mazatlan was just better, I thought. And if it hadn't been for Paz, it would have been over. So it was more of a save the bacon than it was playing with the food. Playing with the food is like you can kill them and you don't. Man, there was no chance for them to kill that game at the end. They were getting dominated in the last 20 minutes. So
I thought they had at least 2 really good opportunities to finish. I thought Oberon being offside twice, Jesus's 2 opportunities in the box where he didn't pass the ball, and I would also say all of this just really crummy decision making late in the game to just continuously turn the ball over in bad spots at midfield, allowing Mazatlan space to attack. I just the whole thing kind of fell apart in those last 5 or 6 minutes, and I know it's a different version of the same story with Charlotte, which is there was no reason to have lost the game against Charlotte, and it would have been an absolute disaster if they had given up that tying goal last night.
Yeah, it certainly would have been. I think they'll have to do some introspection on why the last 20 minutes were so bad. It wasn't even 5 for me; it was the last 20.
Yeah,
I think you could look at most of the game. Even from Kamungo slipping over in the first half, clean through on goal. Anza had one he really should have done better with. Jesus had those. I don't know. I don't know if he was just sulking about Edwin, but his head wasn't in that game at all yesterday. The 2 where he had players open with an easy tap and he decides to smash it at a player's leg. Then on the first one, steals the ball away from Lletget to smash it off a player again. There were so many chances that went begging there. They, like Charlotte, they could have had 5 goals very easily.
Yeah, I thought so too. And which was disappointing because I thought they had played such an interesting and nice and positive vibe feeling game up until those subs started happening, which obviously makes me very concerned about Paxton, who looked really weird last night. I don't know if you guys are in agreement with me that that was a really weird Paxton performance, albeit 15-20 minutes max.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
No, I'm just saying it wasn't pretty. It looked like a guy his mind was going faster than his body.
Yeah, that's not a bad way of saying it.
Yeah, the combinations of subs in the midfield really did not do what I think they probably were expecting it to. And usually you expect Paxton to be, all over the place, and Siki too, for that matter. They're both high energy players. Ansa for Obrian, I thought was a really good sub. That worked really well.
Yeah,
but Paxton at taking out Leggett, that sort of ended a lot of the play, some of the penetrating play, and then taking out Velasco totally killed it. So, at the very end of the game, and part of it too is taking off Kamungo for Areola. Areola has been a really good player, but right this minute, he's missing something in terms of his energy and fitness and impactful play. And Kamungo is so explosive. Whoever you pair him with, Ansa or Obrian, those three guys have the ability to pin people back and not let them get forward on you. And when you take one of those guys out for Areola, as smart of a soccer player as he is, right now he can't pin people back. And so that's all part of it. All those subs in general did not quite go like you would like them to.
All right, so Sunday, Buzz, as we probably need to start wrapping this up, how do you feel that Nico's going to line this team up?
Well, I am afraid that the old, as long as you keep winning, you get to keep playing thing will rear its head and Obrian will start again. I would really like him not to, because I don't like some of the decisions he's making. I would prefer Ansa, who is a much, much better soccer decision maker. So I'm hopeful that we get that change happen, but I'm not confident we'll get that change happen. Otherwise, it's Jesus and Kamungo. Ariel is not ready to displace Kamungo. And the midfield is obvious. The new guy's not here and Edwin's gone, so it's Facundo no matter what. It's probably Velasco and Leggett no matter what. Neither Siki nor Paxton did anything in that last game, anything that they should be starting in front of any of those guys. So the only question mark is, I think it's a no-brainer that you play Tafari and Ibiaga. I really hope that the Spanish whatever doesn't win out, the Spanish Mafia, and we end up with Martinez. That would be a terrible decision, in my opinion. So you just have to wonder, is Farfan healthy enough to play? Because you would like his pace also. He's a little bit quicker in my mind than Junca. And then I would be tempted perhaps to play Tuamasi, if he's healthy, over Giovanni Jesus, because this is going to be a game where the other team's going to have the ball the whole game. It's going to be like 80% possession to Miami. And Tuamasi is such a better defender, so Dallas will be able to do their counterattacking quick transition thing. Just don't expect them to have much of the ball. Enters a possession heavy side, and Dallas is not a possession heavy side, so that part will be fairly obvious. And it doesn't mean that the game's not going in Dallas's favor just because they don't have the ball. It's what they want to have happen. So that's kind of where I'm at, and kind of the decisions I hope to have happen. Ansa in for Obrian, and then a healthy Farfan would be nice, but won't be the end of the world. And then I would pick, if Tuamasi's healthy, I would pick him over Giovanni for this one.
Am I nuts for thinking that in reality, Buzz, the two best fullbacks on this team are Farfan on the left and Junca on the right?
No, you can make that case. Yeah, Junca is better in the final third going forward than.
He's been such a nice revelation of an addition to this team this year.
Particularly when he's on the right, because then he can go inside on his left foot. He can play outside in, that modern flip foot wing. Even outside backs, we now see it all the time. Like Junca likes the right side better than the left for that very reason. Certainly right this minute, he probably is better than Tuamasi, because Tuamasi's been out of action for a month and a half. So if Farfan's ready, I would take Junko over both those guys on the right. In fact, this coach has not yet started Junko at right back, though. He's brought him in late, but hasn't started him. So I would take either him or Tuamasi over Giovanni for this game, in my opinion. So,
what are you going to say, Dan?
I wasn't saying anything. My one thought really is with Ansar, is he 90 minutes in 100-degree weather ready? We've seen him come off the bench effectively, but it comparatively doesn't take much to have just half an hour where you can kind of absolutely shatter yourself. It's a lot harder to control that from the start.
It is, but there's also now guys that could come in and give him. You only really need to get like 60 out of him.
Yeah,
you got O'Brien and Areola both, who can, and Dante Sealy too, for that matter, could bring in, give you 30 or 45 if you have to.
And the other thing is with Giovanni Jesus, he is a yellow card away from being suspended. Yellow cards are wiped out after this coming round. So, I mean, do you take the risk on him anyway when if you even look at Messi the wrong way, you get a yellow card in currently?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Can we just take a minute before we finish up to enjoy the comic moment of Hadair O'Brien and the goal that was disallowed for the offside? Because there's so many elements to that particular sequence that is such quintessential Hadair O'Brien. Just including the fact that he scores a goal, is called offside, and he complains like it's the end of the world. They show the replay, and in fact, it turns out that you can make an argument that he was very much onside because the defender on the far side of the field pretty much makes you feel like that hot air. But then you go back and you rewatch the entire sequence, and you realize, if you pay very close attention, Hadair has absolutely zero clue that guy on the other side of the field is holding him onside. And it's like, and he's complaining, knowing you have to think that he has to know in his heart he's offside, because he has no idea that guy 25 yards away actually held him on.
Yeah, from his point of view, he was off by a long shot.
Here's the thing. You've both played the game. Everything's worth a shout.
Fair.
Yeah. Fair.
But it was more than a shout. He really threw a fit. He threw a pretty classic Hadair O'Brien fit for a while there.
And he was right.
He was, but he didn't know he was right.
He didn't know he was right, yeah.
It was very funny.
Yeah.
I was very frustrated. And by the way, in fairness to Hadair, that was a nice finish.
Oh, the first one, though, he was offside by miles. And he's like, well, I'm off. I was like, dude.
Well, here's my question. Why is Leggett crossing the ball to a guy so obviously offside?
Just you see a guy and so you pass it and you forget,
That's the
He was
difference.
run out of space in a hurry. I know the commentators, including Followball's like, oh, yeah, you're right. You should have shot that. It's like, I don't know. He was running out of time fast. That defender was closing on him and he had to get rid of it. And he sees over on his left. He's like, sweet. And oh, shit, you're offside.
There was one thing I would love to know. When the penalty is awarded, Jose Martinez is arguing with the referee. He walks off with his head in his hands, looking like someone just ran over his pet hamster. I want to know what the hell he was pissed off about.
Was he thinking it was a red card? Did he think it was a last man red card call, and he totally didn't see the second defender literally 2 yards away?
I mean, it was a soft penalty anyway. It was by the letter of the law a penalty, but it was soft as shit.
I thought he clipped him pretty. It was pretty clumsy.
It was a little grab at the arm and then a tiny shove in the back, but
I thought he clipped his legs.
Bernie made the most of it.
I thought I saw him clip his ankle too, so I thought it was just clumsy in general.
I assumed he just wanted the call. That was my assumption. I mean, I don't know.
I don't.
Sometimes I don't know what's going on in Martinez's mind.
It just, it was kind of like, what's he losing his mind for?
Maybe he's having another cramp.
When I saw that, I thought they were trying to overturn the penalty.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, look, guys, they got the win.
Yeah, win. Yeah, it's a good win.
We should be, and Messi's coming to town.
Oh, no one cares about that. But it was mostly a decent performance. Like you said, they very much played with their food. Hopefully they learn from a few things. Martin Paz, after the game, seemed pretty annoyed that they were played so passively in the last few minutes when they dropped into that low block.
Yeah. Hey, look, I mean, I think I haven't paid that close attention, but my perception is that MLS has come out really strongly in this tournament, other than what, like 2 or 3 of the big dog Liga MX teams. And MLS has pretty much done their business against all the others, right? Am I correct in saying this?
It's actually closer to 50-50. But
oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it's in MLS's favor. But you have to consider too that all the games are here, so there's a big home field advantage. And obviously, the Mexican teams are all in the very beginning of their season.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
So it's been in MLS's favor. But I think when you weigh those two things in, it's it's at least more balanced than Champions League has been. There's still a clear divide between the Mexican teams and the amount of money they have. They have what would count as a DP in this league. Like we have teams here that have 3, and they have teams that have 15. Not all of them, but some of them. So it's not a level playing field yet. I'm just excited that at least it's close. The competition's close, and I can't wait to watch FC Dallas win this thing just so I can make.
Out of the 7 teams so far that are qualified for round of 16, only Querétaro has been the only Mexican team.
Yeah. Well, before this round, it was close to even. But, I think you didn't get to calculate those 2 things in.
Yeah, it was, 13 out of...
I'm just hopeful that on Sunday night, Nico sticks somebody on Busquets, and somebody is at least attempting to keep Busquets from picking his head up and pinging balls 50 yards onto dimes, and at least giving him some sort of hassle and not just free reign to do whatever the F he wants to.
Yeah, that's my big worry is that Velasco and Leggett trying to keep that guy from springing somebody is going to be the problem.
Velasco must be out of his mind. I'm sure Keown is too. Maybe that's part of the reason why Facundo was playing so well last night was because he was fighting for the opportunity to play another to play Messi.
And Allen hitting the crossbar in the first.
Oh yeah,
that was a nice shot too. Yeah.
So who gets Messi's jersey?
Oh yeah. I don't know. That's
Martinez?
It's a big thing. I mean, apparently they decided before the game. Messi gets to say, I think, who's getting it.
I bet Velasco gets it.
I don't know. Who knows? It depends on whether Facundo knows him or not.
Yeah. Well, boys, look, maybe I'm a man on an island, but I am super excited as a fan of this club that this is happening on Sunday, and I am very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, enjoy the game, man. It's going to be. I'll watch it on TV, but it'll be. I'm excited to watch it too, but not as big a deal for me in person.
Yeah, Dan, you all a tingle, or are you just meh about this in a very Dan way?
I mean, it's another FC Dallas game. I'd be covering it if it was Orlando or if it was Miami. So
My double photographer got turned down, so I only got up.
Oh no!
So, yeah.
Okay.
Well, it was a space question,
Yeah. Well, you imagine how many.
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
Overflow media seating and the whole bit. That was the thing. I wonder. I'm going to hope that the Hunts and somebody in the front office at the very least put some thought into doing something with the stage for this game, whether resurrecting the beer garden stands or doing some sort of standing room only or doing something. And some sort of legal or city code thing was the reason why they didn't capitalize on that opportunity for this game.
No, it would have been the league, if anything.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I will say, I will give somebody at some level at FC Dallas some level of credit because there was a legitimate concern on my part that we would not get our normal credentials at all. We still got one photographer and we still got Dan. So that's, when you see in some of Messi's other games, you see national guys getting their credential turned down.
Yeah.
I mean, I legitimately was like, I'm not even sure we're getting our normal ones.
In fairness, that was Herc complaining that he got turned down 4 days after the deadline.
Yeah, sure, but it still crossed my mind that it was a big deal and it might change things, and we might not get our normal. And I'm just trying to give some credit that we actually did get our normal allotment of.
FC Dallas has fought constantly with the league on just about everything in this. So, You definitely
Yeah.
have to
That's
give
good
them
to
the
hear.
credit.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Monday may roll around and nothing has changed and everything goes back to the status quo. But I hope everybody that gets an opportunity to be in attendance Sunday night just enjoys the scene and the atmosphere and the experience, because it's something you'll be able to tell your family down the road that you were at Messi's first MLS or first road game, and Dallas hosted it. And that's kind of
First
cool.
loss.
So. Yeah, and his first loss. That would be
Yeah.
pretty awesome, too. Look, I think Dallas has a good shot at giving them some trouble if they play their cards right. Dallas is a good side, and he hasn't played on the road yet.
Fully fit team.
Yeah, and he hasn't played on the road yet, and it's going to be balls hot.
It's going to be 105. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dallas loves to kill games. So.
Did you notice on the TV they've started putting a thermometer next to one of the match balls on the stand so that the TV camera can cut to it?
Yes, I saw that. They showed that last night. I noticed that, yeah. Good stuff. All right, well, boys, good fun?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Dan, did you have good fun?
It was a long one.
It was a long one.
We got there. We eventually got there.
We did get there. Well, I hope to see you on Sunday, Dan.
I will certainly keep an eye out for you.
And then run away as soon as you see me at a distance?
Exactly. You know the deal.
I know how you are, sir. Buzz, I know it's not as big a deal to you. It would have been a lot of fun to have gone to this game with you. So I'm sorry. I mean, I know you're enjoying 65-degree mornings and shit like that up there, but
55, dude. Yeah.
Middle finger emoji to you, sir.
Yeah.
I wish you had been here. It would have been a lot of fun to see you. So we'll have to. I'll send you a text or a picture or something.
When I planned this trip back in February, I didn't know Messi game was going to be on the cards, but
yeah.
Third Degree, the podcast, has been brought to you by Soccer90.com. For all your FC Dallas North Texas Soccer Club and U.S. National Team gear, check out all the stuff. The women's national team jerseys, all the stuff from all the teams, T-shirts, scarves, everything you want. Represent the women's national team down at the World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. If you shop at Soccer90.com, use code Third Degree at checkout. You'll get 20% off your order. Some exclusions do apply. Soccer90.com.
This is a weird weekend for me. Tomorrow night, I'm going to see Barbie. Saturday night, I am finally getting my reserved opportunity to go see Oppenheimer on the IMAX.
I was going to ask you if you were going to Barbenheimer it.
I'm going to Barbie Friday night, Oppenheimer Saturday night, and Messi in Frisco on Sunday.
That's a pretty big weekend.
That's a crazy weekend. Yeah. Very good. All right, boys. Well done. We will speak next week. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Buzzard. Have fun up there in Idaho.
Thanks. Enjoy the game, man.
How are the meetings going, by the way? The convention.
Meeting? What convention?
I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to talk about that. I forgot. That's
Dude, down low.
Down low.
Low key.
Hope you and the family are having fun up there.
Yeah, we are.
And thank you, FC Dallas Curious fan. Turn out big on Sunday. If you happen to run into me, please say hello, or Dan or anybody else that's at the game. We'd love to say hello to you. And we will speak to you next week and talk about the Messi game on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
Idaho. No, you don't.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.